In wealth management, better decisions don't start with analytics, they start with data you trust. Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Hagander from WealthArc, and today with me is Stratos Mavrogiannis from BlackRock, Aladdin, WealthArc. Together in this series, From Data to Decisions, we're exploring how structured analytics and reliable data change the way advisors report, explain, and act, especially in complex markets. Because when the foundations are right, everything built on top becomes more common. Welcome to episode 1, where we will discuss a question we often hear from advisors. Can I actually trust the information I'm taking decisions on? Unconsolidated and inconsistent data across custodians forces wealth managers to spend time reconciling numbers in Excel instead of advising clients, creating operational risk, silent errors, which could ultimately lead to eroded trust in both inputs and outputs. It is our mission to bring all together into a clean, consistent data foundation. Stratos, can you tell us how inaccurate data can impact portfolio analysis?
So Dennis, I would say there are several risks for portfolio analysis when wealth managers, the most obvious of course is that they cannot get a reliable portfolio analysis. There is more time spent into validating and making sense of data points, and as a result, trust erodes, and that of course propagates to client conversations. From our side, what we really try to do is help wealth managers avoid these pitfalls. An example is to bring tools such as BlackRock's Portfolio 360 as a normalized and clean data source to provide a holistic portfolio analysis. This also enables users of WealthArc to essentially understand the characteristics, risk, stress testing, and performance metrics of their portfolios. But Dennis, my question to you would be, based on your daily conversations with wealth managers, where do you see these breaks happen most often?
It's mostly when data moves between systems, right? You have custodian feeds coming from banks, moving into portfolio management systems, those moving into reporting systems or into analytics systems. So it's every time data transitions from one system to the other, it gets interpreted, and every interpretation introduces variations.
But interpretation is inevitable to some extent. Different systems are built on different levels and sources of data. So you always need to have and bring in some interpretation.
Very true, right? And a custodian's job isn't the same as a reporting system's job. The challenges are whenever banks or wealth managers try to combine these views, and this is exactly where inconsistencies will appear.
And that's exactly where manual processes come in.
Yes, of course. Exports, mappings, validation checks. Excel becomes the unofficial reconciliation engine, not because people love it, simply just because they need control. So Stratos, we hear the term trustworthy data a lot, but somewhat it feels abstract. Can you tell us what trustworthy data really means?
Absolutely. I would say that trustworthy data is timely, reconciled, and contextual. What do we mean by this? Timely, meaning the data is not stale. Reconciled, that is consistent across different sources, and then contextual, that essentially it's explainable and not just displayed.
Absolutely, and I mean on top of that, right, trust in data is absolute key. I just recently spoke to a client we're onboarding, so he's migrating from one system to the other, and that currently introduces some instabilities, and he tells me, Dennis, in the morning I log into my system and I do my checks and I clearly see there's inconsistencies. How can I possibly manage my client's money? It's impossible. So bottom line, trust in data is absolute key.
And that foundation matters enormously. I would say there is also an emotional side to trusting the data. When wealth managers trust their data, they behave differently. You see it as well. They are more decisive, more comfortable explaining outcomes. And trust in data translates into confidence in conversations with clients, explaining portfolio outcomes.
Right, and this is why the data foundation is absolute key. And this is part of our mission at WealthArc, to ensure that the data received from our client feeds are reconciled, and once the foundation is secure, we can transfer the information to any system, such as Portfolio 360, and let it do its job.
I was wondering, do you see cultural changes when firms secure their data foundation?
I really believe they do, right? People can stop debating numbers and start debating their strategic approach. So meetings will shift from discussing which number is right to what should we do. And also, with increasing data complexity, the focus can shift on how to handle it.
But complexity is not going away. In a more and more interconnected world and global markets, wealth managers need to better understand the combination of return, risk and exposure to implement changes in portfolios and strategies. If we were to put it simply, derive actionable insights from complex data. That is the real challenge.
Spot on, Stratos, which means data foundations matter more and not less.
Exactly.
So Stratos, being in an organization that receives and processes enormous amount of data, you have seen a lot more about the impact clean data has. What happens when firms truly fix their data foundation?
So I would say benefits compound and progress accelerates. Why? Because you have cleaner reporting, then better analytics, more confident managers, and ultimately stronger client conversations. It's not one improvement, but rather a chain reaction.
So it's obvious, the journey from data to decisions starts earlier than most think. Before reporting, before analytics, before client conversations, it simply starts with the data you trust.
Exactly. And once that trust exists, everything that is built on top is way more powerful.
Yes, of course, because you're not managing the data, you're using it. So ultimately, better decisions don't come from more data, they come from data that is structured, trusted, and understood. And that's really the journey from data to decisions, and it all starts with foundations you can trust. Thank you so much for joining the conversation.